Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third session of day 4 of Wake Up Community Week. I can't believe it's already Thursday, it's 4th day in, but we're having a good time. I can see everyone in the chat there jumping on from the last session. Hope you enjoyed the session so far today, and we have another great one for you coming up in just a few seconds. Before we get started, though, please do say hello in the chat and let us know where you're joining from, not just for myself, but for the speakers. It's amazing to see such a worldwide audience of educators joining us. And of course, with this fantastic session, anything that you find inspiring that you want to share around, please do share it in the comments, but also on social media using that hashtag Wake Up Community Week. And a reminder, doing so means that you're entered into our competition for some VR headsets, some exclusive Wake Up Community Week swag, and some daily prizes as well, including gift vouchers and gift cards as well. So be in the chance of that. You can enter as many times as you want. So there'll be a lot of things in this session you'll find interesting. Get them shared on social media. And of course, with this session comes the resources and the certificate. So we'll share that around towards the end of the session. And the reason, more so than just getting the certificate and the resources for filling the form out, is you'll also be entered into a competition too. But I won't say too much about that because I'll let our speakers do that in a second. So that's my bit out of the way. I'd love to invite our two very special speakers. We have Chris and we have Destiny. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
It's early for us. I don't know where the time zones are for everyone else.
Yeah. Oh, we've got everyone from all over, but yeah, is it what 8 a.m. your time?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us early on. We appreciate it. But for now, the stage is yours. Obviously, you're going to be sharing about empowering and supporting teachers, and I think it's going to be a really good one for everyone in the chat. So I'll keep an eye on that for you for now. And for now, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So, hi everybody.
Hi. Good morning.
Do you want us to go ahead and share, or James, are you sharing our screen?
There we go.
Thank you. So we are at Tech Nerds. We're here to talk to you today about supporting and empowering teachers. Mindfulness is really, really important to us. So we will go ahead and scroll down. I believe they're sharing the collection with you in the chat. It'll also be in the Community Week resources. So first of all, talking about how to support teachers, we will ask you and go over some ways to recognize stress. So our first thing is, wherever you are, just pause and take a deep breath. Okay. So the thing when we do that is, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but think about what happened in your body. A lot of times when we ask people to do this exercise, we see, and the shoulders go up and everything shrugs. And sometimes that actually sends a cue to your body that you're more stressed than you actually are when you're trying to take a deep breath to calm yourself. So we'll go through a little bit of the science on what's happening in your nervous system and your brain, and then ways that we can support you and help alleviate some of those stressors. So there are two parts to your nervous system. The first one is called the sympathetic nervous system. And this is the one where you're constantly going, it's your fight or flight. And that's what happens when your body senses danger. So if you were to take that deep breath and your shoulders shrug, you're shrugging up your shoulders and it's trying to protect your brain and all of the vital organs up near your spinal column and things like that. So your body doesn't really know the difference. It's spiking your adrenaline, all that energy is directed towards survival. So what we want to do is be really mindful when we take that breath to drop those shoulders down, to try to breathe lower into the diaphragm, lower into the belly. And what that does is it will engage your parasympathetic part of the nervous system. It's also called the rest and digest. And that's the part that engages whenever your body knows that danger has passed. It kind of dampens that stress response and it helps you get back to a more calm and composed state. So hopefully next time you take a deep breath, you'll recognize, drop those shoulders, okay? The good news is that those two parts of your nervous system cannot be on at the same time. So you have that ability to use your breath like a light switch, and that helps modulate to get you into that more rest and digest part of your nervous system. Anything to add yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. We also didn't mention that we have tons of resources for you. I know this is a 30-minute session. So Just know that if we do skip over anything, you do have the collection and the resources for you so that you can go back and look at anything. And you'll also have our contact information. Please feel free to reach out after the session too. Okay, the next part with the brain.
Yes.
There are two parts that really help modulate and function and that are firing whenever you're stressed or not stressed. So, just like you had two parts to your nervous system, the two parts of the brain that are important for this are the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And your amygdala is probably like a walnut ish size part of your brain. It's right there down in the bottom, kind of in between the ears. And this is the one that takes over when your body is going into survival mode. It's like self preservation versus your prefrontal cortex, which is up here in the front. And under normal circumstances, this is the one that helps basically your adulting skills. So, planning, organization, memory, it helps give you that forward thinking and be a little bit more strategic. So, we'll talk about these as we go through some of the other things.
Yep.
I'm reminding myself to take a breath in between sections here. All right. So, when we want to have that forward thinking and that structured plan, I don't know if you are a teacher in the classroom or if you have a leadership role, but one of the things that we wanted to address is how leadership can support teachers in the school. And there's a short story, a little fable that I will share with you. And it's the story of the four philanthropists. So if you do have that collection, I'm not going to play the video for you, but the whole thing is down in the bottom. I'm going to quickly summarize. So there was a village where invaders came in, they took over the village, they grabbed all of the men and threw them in jail in the center of town. As time went on, people in the town kept walking by and they're like, oh, I feel really bad for those prisoners now. They look so uncomfortable. They look so sad. They're in jail. And so a couple of townsmen, these philanthropists, came in and said, oh, I have a lot of crops and vegetables. Would it be okay if I provided food for these prisoners to help them not be malnourished? And the guards, prison guards were like, oh, I guess that'd be okay. And so this philanthropist was able to feed all of the prisoners and he felt really good about it. He helped them so much and he thought he had fulfilled his destiny. Well, that's great. Time goes on. Another one comes in and he says, I noticed they're starting to look a little malnourished and they're not getting a lot of water. I have access to clean water. May I provide clean water for all the prisoners? The guards agreed. They said yes. And that philanthropist felt really good. He's like, oh, look how many people I helped. That was awesome. I fulfilled my destiny. That was great. And then the third philanthropist said, you know what? I have a lot of hay. I feel so bad for these prisoners. They're sleeping on the floor. They're in dirt. They look so uncomfortable. Can I make them mattresses? That was approved. Prisoners got mattresses. And then they had something to sleep on. Well, then comes the fourth philanthropist. He sneaks in the middle of the night and steals the key to the jails and unlocks all of the cells and releases the prisoners. So the moral of this story is, what are your leadership doing in classes to help support the teachers? Are you making them more comfortable in their suffering, or are you giving them the keys to be released and get free from that freedom? So if you want to see more about that, and I kind of think about like, maybe people has like, oh, we'll do jeans passes for a day and we're providing all this food and that's great and it helps in the moment and it feels amazing and it's really thoughtful. It's just not helping in the long term. So those long-term goals are a little bit more what we're focused on today. And in order to do that, Chris is going to talk about how good leaders can put their teachers first.
So growing up, I was in the military. I joined the Navy, spent some time there. And in high school, before I was in the Navy, I was in the Marine Corps ROTC, and we took a trip to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And one of the things that experience taught me was that with the Marine Corps, when we went, we would march in formation and go to the chow hall, and we would go as a platoon and everyone would eat together. But when we went into the chow hall and got in line to go get food, the fire team leaders, the platoon leader would stand by the door, the platoon sergeant would stand by the door, the squad leader would stand by the door, and then the fire team would go in, and then the fire team leader would go last. And once the entire squad had gone through, then the squad leader would go in after his squad. And then once all of the squads had gone through, the last two people through the door were the platoon sergeant and the platoon leader. And and then when I got out of high school and I joined the Navy, I noticed that the Navy does a really good job of taking care of its officers. They have better quarters, nicer uniforms, better food uh, better food service, that kind of thing. And what I realized was that those two organizations are both very, very good at taking care of the person that accomplishes their mission. So they're the United States military. Their job is to put ordnance on target when they need to do that. And so it's all about the people who have control over when to shoot. And so those, for the Marine Corps, it is your frontline grunts. And so those guys eat first. And in the Navy, it is the officers who fly the fighter jets and drive the ships and get the Navy where it needs to be. And so in both of those situations, they're both very good at accomplishing their mission, and they're also very good at taking care of the person who accomplishes that mission. And so if you are leadership in your school, then this begs the question, because your mission is to educate students, where do students spend most of their time? 90% at least of a student's time during the day is in a classroom with a teacher. So, how much of your resources and effort do you give to supporting teachers versus supporting other things? And so, how much focus do you have
Mhm.
on making teachers first so that your teachers can be students first? Is
Oh,
the question.
yeah, I like that analogy. Thank you. So, in order to do that, some of the things, maybe just start with your professional development. And I know we call it PD here in the States, but think about it more as personal development. Like Chris said, you really want to put those teachers first. So, what's important to them?
Yeah.
Their entire life doesn't exist in the school. Yes, it's their passion. Yes, they love their job, but they're not living in a closet in the back of the classroom. They actually go home, maybe have a family, have a lot of friends. They go and do other things. So, getting to know and help to merge those two worlds so that you're bringing in the personal development of your teachers instead of just classroom professional development. So, creating time for those passion projects. I know at a school that Chris and I were at, part of that professional development day, they brought in people that taught yoga classes for the day. They arranged to have cooking lessons with our dining hall staff. You know, you could do things like bring in a local artist and have painting or do an escape route challenge, but really building that morale and helping recognize that the teachers are people first. And yes, they serve the students, but if they're not being able to fill their own cup, then they're not able to give their best selves to the people around them. So, with that, talking about stress versus performance, when that's not able to happen, the teachers get really stressed. It leads to burnout. I am actually one of those teachers. I did leave the classroom. And now, getting back into education, Chris and I have really made it our mission to help with that mindfulness and stress alleviating aspect. And just as a reminder, when you think about it, yes, you're giving your all to the classroom, but what award would you like to win? And a gentle reminder, there's no award for being the last car in the parking lot. That is not one that we want to strive for. So, deciding what's important to you and how you can put your best self forward to alleviate some of that stress. Now, when we talk about stress, stress itself isn't bad, but the wrong kind or too much of it can be. So we have this little graphic, and this is something that Chris had experienced in a presentation. So I'm going to let him talk about that.
Yeah, our at the school where I work, our college counselor used to be a college admissions officer, and he talked about having stress versus performance, and so building the right amount of the right kinds of stress is really important, because that's what pushes us and causes us to stretch and to grow. But having too much or having the wrong kinds of stress then becomes um, a negative thing. And so being careful in what we focus on and what we choose to accept is really, really important with that. And so, like, according to this graph, having enough that just pushes us just out of the comfort zone and into the stretch is where we get our optimal performance.
And when Chris mentioned, the two different types of stress, there's the part that, when you're bored or when you're burned out, that's the unhealthy maladaptive stress. And those are things like when you say, oh, I'm so stressed, it's been a stressful day at work, or things like that. And you might notice that manifests in all kinds of way in the body, whether that's anxiety or high blood pressure, lack of sleep, anything like that. And when you're living in that constant state of stress, just a reminder to tie back to the parts of the brain earlier, that's when your amygdala is really in charge. That's driving your body. It's all about survival. And you kind of have this like all or nothing fallacy. I don't know if you've experienced that, but things just seem so overwhelming. You're like, I don't even know where to start. It's all too big. So, thinking about the healthy kind of stress, how can we shift our brain from that amygdala to the prefrontal cortex and get into that healthy adaptive stress? So, what are the positive types of things you can do to help us be more productive? Um, Whenever you're able to rest and recharge and engage that prefrontal cortex, then you have the capability to look and to plan ahead. So, a couple of things is finding that sweet spot. Your brain is a muscle, it has neuroplasticity in it, so that you do have the ability to retrain and rewire your brain. So if you're trying to make positive changes, start small. Yes, we can say, oh, I read up on, say, high blood pressure, and there's 15 things I can do to help my blood pressure. You can start implementing all of those, but it's not going to last. Our brain needs time to adapt because remember that good kind of stress is called adaptive stress. So starting small is really, really important. Your brain needs time to pause and recover from that positive change in order to have that lasting adaptation to help you find those good habits. And, back in caveman times, we had like the tiger in the cave. And so we were constantly on alert, and that was the fight or flight response. But nowadays, even though that metaphorical tiger, is no longer there, in a way, it's kind of never ending. We have social media, we have all kinds of influences and input into our brain constantly. So instead of turning that amygdala off, it's actually kind of in the background at this low hum, and that prevents us from resetting the brain. So, how can you go from that low hum of constant stress in the background to making that completely go away so that you can engage that prefrontal cortex in your brain? And so, a couple of ways to do that would be simply recognizing how you feel. Are you thriving and flourishing? Or are you just trying to make it through the day? And simply recognizing that starts the process to help engage the more healthy aspects of the brain. One of the biggest things is being able to walk outside, even if it's just 5 minutes. It reduces fatigue, it increases your self efficacy, it builds confidence, because it's not about the promise of physical fitness. It's about the promise of mental fitness. You may think, oh, 5 minutes, that's not going to do anything, but it actually helps your brain, which in turn has that snowball effect of helping the rest of your body. And do we have anybody else that does like the doom scrolling at all? Do you think, I just need to veg for a hot second? I'm going to scroll on my phone, reach for the phone, start looking through social media. So if that's you, gentle reminder, something I learned. You're not actually taking a break when that happens. You're firing up that amygdala because in olden times there would be somebody that was the night watchman that would watch over the rest of the tribe, and they were on that constant alert. That's what scrolling does to your brain. You're constantly looking for that next thing, you're making decisions, it's taking up brain power, and so it's actually creating more stress when that's not your intent at all. So the next time you have the urge to scroll, leave the phone there, go step outside. It's going to be the same amount of time that you would have spent scrolling. So you might as well do something healthy for your body. So think about those small incremental changes. Yes, if somebody says, oh, self care, you should take a break, go get a massage. It feels great in the moment. It's a big grand gesture. And yes, but even though it's helpful, it's not going to be lasting. It's more like putting a band aid on it. So kind of like we mentioned, stop making teachers comfortable in their suffering. What can you do to take ownership of that and make those small changes for yourself? And even a big part of that is to cultivate self-compassion. Give yourself grace. It's a big process. So remember to start small and have those tiny little increments to help us get through that. And to help us with that, we have the importance of planning. So Chris and I actually wrote, and we spent a lot of research and time and effort putting into this passion project of ours, and we created a daily planner for the mindful teacher. So when James mentioned that there's going to be something that goes along with that certificate link that you're filling out, everyone that fills out the certificate link from this session has the ability to for a chance to win our planner. Oh, you do have it.
I do have it. So this is our planner, and so this has daily reminders and things in it that take you through a morning process and then an evening process to go back and reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And so it allows you to set up your day and plan things through. Um, uh, Take time to remember your long-term goals at the beginning and at the end of the day. And then one of the things that it's really good for, particularly because it makes you reflect in the evening, is going back and seeing what your successes were during the day. And feeling that sense of accomplishment is a great reducer in stress. And so taking that time to digest what you have to do and breaking it down into small chunks in the morning, and then and getting yourself organized, and then going through your day, you have a fresh reminder from that morning that carries you through the day and allows you to refocus everything that you're doing back towards your goals. And then at the end of the day, you can go back through and check off your boxes and have that sense of accomplishment. And then what you don't get done that day, you can then move to the next day and know that it won't be forgotten, so that your brain can relax at night and it's not constantly trying to remember that one thing that you didn't get done today.
Yeah.
So
So, whether you use something like our planner or just a sheet of paper, this whole idea of setting up and taking time for your day, and then, like Chris mentioned, that reflection piece at the end, it makes a big difference and it allows you to free up that brain space and it's reducing that decision fatigue. So, thinking about trying to build those habits, and that's part of what any planner is going to do for you. So, think about some of the habits that you would like to do. One of the ones for me is I try to have no screen time. So there's no social media, no emails, anything like that within a minimum of 1 hour after I've woken up. Because again, remember all of that scrolling, all of that input from all kinds of things, it's starting to fire up that stress response in your brain. So we want to make sure that we don't have that input. You are in charge of setting up your day. Think about your mornings as the on ramp to the highway of the rest of your day. So how do you want that to start? And then anchoring your lessons digitally. Did you want to mention that one? So relating it back to the classroom.
yeah, and so having the big thing, one of our big topics is agile lesson design, and being able to adapt your lessons on the fly quickly, because no plan survives first contact with the day. Um, and so your students can derail you in a heartbeat. And so if your lessons are anchored digitally, then it becomes real easy to pivot. You can If you were going to have a lecture or discussion that day and it turns out you don't have time because there was a fire drill, then it's real easy, if you have that lesson recorded, to be able to dump it into a tool like Edpuzzle or Wakelet or something, so that you can then get it to your students and then know that they still watched it and understood what was understood the content.
Yeah. So this idea, whatever habit you choose, whether it's to help you be more efficient in the classroom or it's to be more mindful in your personal life, think of it like, a sport. You're building that muscle memory so that you don't have to put that energy into choosing and planning. That can help free up some of that stress and you can deal with unexpected events a little bit more easily. And then part of that planning also is making time in your day to get better at something. It doesn't matter what it is. So if you're interested and maybe you want to use more technology in the classroom, choose one tool at a time. Like maybe for this set of 6 weeks or 9 weeks, whatever your grading period is, you're going to focus on something like Wakelet and start to slowly switch over some of your lessons so that you're not having everything all at once. Too many choices, it leads to decision fatigue, it's overwhelm, and then you have that sense of failure because you're like, oh, I can't get all the things done, like I didn't get anything. So, starting small, but also being intentional about dialing in and getting better at one thing at a time, it's going to build your confidence. And then there's also fewer items that are competing for your brain power. And then since we do have, in case you can't tell, I have like the sciencey background. So I keep bringing back some of the science of stress into this. So you also have a part of your brain called the reticular activator. And when you feed your goals and think about things that are important to you, so we talked about personal development over professional development. So choosing something like that in whatever form of a planner you use, write down the things that are important to you. Do you want to run a marathon? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to travel somewhere? Those aren't going to happen tomorrow, but keep in mind they are important to you. Write them down every day. So what that does is your reticular activator, that's the part of your brain that's like, hey, remember that thing? Look, there's that thing.
Yep.
And it starts to look for those opportunities for you versus 6 months later, you're like, oh, I did want to write that book. Guess I forgot about it. So you're keeping yourself at the forefront and knowing that you are important in your own life. And then we're winding up here. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks, Tisha. Nice little sticky notes on your mirror. So we want to think about responding and not reacting. So by having these planners or, whatever that is for you and being intentional about your day, that allows you to give a proper response instead of reacting to whatever shows up. So, I mentioned for myself, I don't have any screen time for a certain amount of time after I wake up in the morning because it allows me to set up my day in the way that I want. You're keeping that prefrontal cortex active rather than succumbing to the whims of the amygdala stress part of your brain. And I kind of like this analogy. Remember, like firefighters, police officers, if you think about a firefighter, they're called first responders. They're not called first reactors. So think about how terrible it would be if the fire truck pulls up and the firemen get out and they're like, oh my God, your house is on fire. What do we do? I don't know what to do. And they're running around, right? So they're not reacting. They have a plan. They've gone through the exercises. They're responding to it. And so that's what we want to do for you is being able to give you those tools for how you can calm the nervous system, slow it down, respond appropriately instead of feeling like you're constantly playing catch up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Hope I explained that well. Okay. All right. As we wrap up, I know we're short on time, so I'm not going to go through these, but I did want to mention matching your breath to movement. So if you're able to match some movement in your body to your inhales and exhales, that actually helps to sync your nervous system a little bit better. So I've included a couple of my favorite exercises in here. I have them written down in words. There's a video you can watch. I also draw little stick figures. I am a yoga teacher, and I draw little sketches for all of my breathing exercises and my classes that I teach. So just wanted you to be able to see these. That one's the circle of joy. And then there's also a seated stretch. So I did write out inhales and exhales on what's happening. There is a video you can follow along, and then your stick figures. Chris likes to point out the I's and E's are inhales and exhales. It's not E-I-A-I-O, McDonald. So, okay. I do want to, however, do this last exercise for you. So we started with that one deep breath. And the way that I close all of my yoga classes is with 3 collective breaths together. So wherever you are, take a moment, put your feet flat on the floor, or if you're standing, that's fine too. Sit up nice and straight. You can relax your arms down in your lap. If it feels okay, you're welcome to close the eyes. Placing your left hand over your heart, your right hand on your low belly. Take a nice deep inhale through the nose. And as you exhale, let it out in a sigh. Do one more of those. Inhale through the nose, sigh it out. And that last breath we do is a shh to help our nervous system. So take an inhale. Shh. I like that little pause. That was super calming to me.
Yeah.
I hope that was calming for you too. So that's also something that you can do in your classroom just to kind of close out the day. That sound really is soothing for our nervous system. So I always like to end with that one. And remember, no matter what stress is happening in your day, you are the sky, everything else is just the weather. I really like that quote. So. Thank you, Wakelet, for giving us this opportunity. If you do have a copy of the collection, there are resources in here for you. Chris and I do present at several conferences across the US on both cultivating calm and mindfulness, and we have Wakelet spaces for those. And every time we present those to the audience. And it's been a ongoing building of resources. So please feel free to take a look at that. All the audience participants have access to it. So it continues to build the more we present. And we would love for you to take a look and put in your own resources as well. And then just a reminder, Wakelet is doing the raffle for to win a chance for one of our planners. So make sure that you fill out the certificate form for this session. Certificate of attendance. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Are you guys back in?
Yeah, you said it correct. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
fill that out, and then we'll announce the winners on social media shortly.
Perfect. Yeah, I will drop the certificate link in just a second so everyone can grab that. And I've shared the resources there because a lot of people have been asking for those. But Chris, Destiny, that was perfect. It was calming, is what it was. I think it was a great ending, obviously, with the breathing exercise, and I love the quote at the end. But I mean, just throughout, I mean, one thing I took away from it was just how simple those exercises and techniques, I suppose, easy to implement. There is one in mind that a lot of people commented about, which was the stop doom scrolling. I think that's going to be probably one of the hardest ones in today's day and age. I don't know what you think about that.
It's definitely difficult. So once, hearing the statistics and recognizing it actually is a physical response in your brain and you do have control over it and the damage that it's doing when you thought it was the opposite response, I think just that recognition is really, hopefully that's going to help make you think twice the next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the idea of instead of doing that, going outside, just relaxing a bit, because you're right. By the time you step outside and you've done a breathing technique, and you've walked back inside, you'll have still been scrolling probably even longer. I'm very guilty of it, so I'm going to be trying doing that for the rest of the day and onward as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of science behind that. Like the act of going outside and taking a walk. Especially if you're like a remote worker or if you're doing online classes and things like that, if you go outside and take a walk, it like sinks into the roots of traveling in your brain, and it allows you to divide up parts of your day. And so if you're just trying to make a shift from doing one thing to another thing, and you're having trouble and your mind keeps going back to the first thing or whatever, taking even just 2 or 3 minutes to just walk a distance, even if you can't get outside, walk down the hallway, go around the corner, come back, and then that part of it, like really helps. So
yeah, I'm not sure how many of us still work from home, but when we were fully remote, that's how I divided up my day. So my commute was taking a walk around the block, and that helped me separate work from home life, even though they were all in the same physical location. So.
Yeah, no, that is a nice tip, especially like I said, just even if you can do it indoors as well. I think you also touched on another great thing was I like the idea of getting better at one thing at a time, and I suppose that goes for the tips and techniques in the collection and what you've shared there, right? I'm sure everyone will want to do a lot of these techniques and try and implement them, but I suppose same goes with these, right? You've got to just take one at a time. So for me, I'm going to take the to go outside instead of doom scrolling.
Awesome. Yeah. And I saw Alex Isaacs mention the Pomodoro strategy in the chat. That's another one we use. So if you haven't heard about that, make sure that you look that up. There's a really great app called the Balance app that has that included in it. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing so many tips there. Like I said, the resources are in the chat. And of course, we're doing the competition for the planner. I believe Amy said we're giving 3 away. So there's 3 chances to win that, and then like Chris and Destiny said, they'll announce the winner later on. But for now, Chris, Destiny, thank you so much for joining us again to share those tips and techniques.
And thank you guys for being active in the chat and having us on. We hope that you have a stress-free day.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Wow, that was incredible. Like I said, the resources are in the chat there to go ahead and check those out, maybe do a bit more research. And like I said, and like Chris and Destiny said too, start with one thing at a time. I definitely am going to try and do more of the going outside just for a bit instead of doom scrolling, because that is a bad habit of mine. And I know that many people fall into that too. So that's going to be the one thing I take away from this. And I'm sure you talk away much more than that from the session too. But for now, we're going to finish this stream and get ready for the next session in 20 minutes time. Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. The certificate link is in the chat. So if you want to go ahead and fill that out, you'll receive the certificate, the resources to your inbox from Chris and Destiny. And also, as I said, you'll also receive, or be with a chance of being picked for the winner of Chris and Destiny's mindfulness planner. So fill in that's in the chat there. And then also we have our own competition going on, of course, which is if you liked anything from the session, if you liked anything in particular, go ahead and share that on social media. Just make sure you hashtag Wake Community Week and @Wakelet, and you'll be with the chance of winning the VR headsets, the exclusive Community Week swag, and some daily gift vouchers. So go ahead and do that, fill in the certificate link and resources, and we'll see you on the next session. Bye-bye for now.